It takes more to get a girl's attention. It takes more to break her will. Boys are trained to develop a will. Not so with girls, though a girl's will is stronger by nature. Janey knew what the drama coach had meant. It was all too clear to her. By seeing Julie Andrews doing that to the child, she could mingle the mothering device in with the fantasy. Mothers do rear children, even during love, and yes, they do beat their children as well, out of love. Strange but true. Janey thought of her own mother as she read about how Rachel Blackwelder had been verbally and even physically abused by her mother. Yes, mothers could get like that, couldn't they? Mothers were, after all, women, and women were capable of anything, Janey knew, given the right motivation. Janey was identifying closely with Rachel now, and the memory of her drama coach was fading out again. Rachel lived alone. So did Janey. Rachel was a nice woman. So was Janey. Rachel wanted a man, and God knew so did Janey Knight. Rachel had been abused by her mother, just like Janey Knight. Janey closed the character study and closed her burning eyes. Okay, so the script looked good. Now all she had to do was learn her lines and picture what the elusive Miss Blackwelder would do in an abnormal situation. In a scene wherein Dr. What's-His-Name, Bremer, a scene where he gets seduced by her. That would have never happened in the original Peaceful Valley. No way. Not according to this study. Now, how would Rachel seduce him? What reason would she have for doing it? She thought for a minute. This wasn't easy to picture. As she was trying to mentally make Rachel make the move to fornicate with the doctor, Janey's bedroom door opened, and in swept Bethany Bishop, her arms laden down with the materials that she'd gone after. There were several large boxes that she managed to keep stacked until she could let them fall onto the great waterbed at Janey's feet. "Got it memorized yet?" asked Bethany cheerfully. "No," said Janey, tossing the character study across the bed where it landed flat and closed. "I won't either until we start shooting. You know me." "You been up here all day, girl," said Bethany. "I had you figured for nearly finished." "What have you been doing up here all day? Smelling your fingers?" "Cute," said Janey wryly, throwing a small pillow at Bethany. Hard. The pillow whizzed by Bethany's head and struck a painting hanging on the wall. The painting was a reproduction of Steve Hanks's Inspiration, and it depicted a beautiful woman leaning back on a messed-up bed. Janey adored Steve Hanks and all of his ladies. Bethany had bought her this one for her birthday last year. "What?" asked Bethany. "I'm not the pervert," said Janey. "You are." "Touché," cried Bethany. "You're right. I'm the pervert, and I don't even sniff my fingers." The other pillow flew out of Janey's hand, striking Bethany in the face. She caught it as it slammed into the side of her head, cutting out her intense giggle. She put the pillow back down on the bed and smiled at Janey. "Hey," said Bethany, "I only meant, have you got a grip on this Rachel person yet?" "I've got to see something that Rachel wouldn't do," said Janey, "so I can see what she would do when she does it. Like the drama coach said to do." "Oh, I swear to Jiminy Cricket," said Bethany. "You always get caught up in that crap, Janey. You know you do. Why not think about what Rachel's gonna do, rather than what she won't? It would make a whole lot more sense, don't you think?" "What do you know of acting, Bethany? You're just my manager." I know you listen to that old silver-haired whore once too often for your own good, Janie Knight." Bethany regarded Janie closely. "I swear," yelped Bethany. "Are you still spanking Gretel? Let it go." "I can't help it," said Janie. "It seemed so real, the way she made me go through that." "God, you temperamental actor types. No wonder you need managers. Janie, I hate to see you go through this every time you get a part. It's not the end of the screwing world if you don't exactly become Rachel Blackwelder. She doesn't exist. So go out there, give it your guts and soul, and wait until they yell cut. Quit torturing yourself so much over characterization." "I want it to seem real," said Janie. "It's real to me, and I want it real to the audience. I want to be this woman." "You will not get it through your head, will you?" asked Bethany, in exasperation. "You simply do not see it, do you?" Janie looked at her. "See what?" "Who is gonna know if you don't pull it off perfectly?" asked Bethany. "These people who have read this book. Some of them are gonna see it differently anyway. Quit with all the self-debasement before I put you over my knee. You're gonna be terrific, as always, knowing you." Janie looked longingly at the novel, and now she wished that she had troubled to read it. Too late now. Now she would have to follow Miss Manson's advice and picture Rachel bagging groceries at the T-Mall or something, mentally making up dialogue in character with that, what was her name, Janet. Was that her? Yeah. Something she'd never do, like work at the T-Mall. That way she'd get a feel for the part and do it well, as always. Screw Bethany. What did she know? "I know how to read minds," said Bethany. "I hear you telling me to get stuffed over there inside your head. Well, fine. Worry yourself sick over your college drama coach and her crazy way of learning parts. I don't care in the least. But I'm hungry. So get off your dead butt and get a shower. I have reservations. Jacques for 5:30. Balcony table, babe. You know how they piss and moan whenever we're late for the show. They think it ruins our evening." Janie tried not to smile. "Come on, Jay. Get out of bed before you grow to it. You are getting to be one lazy broad." Janie got up, stretching herself slowly, hearing her ankles pop and her joints creak with small nitrogen bubbles releasing in them. Maybe she had been in bed too long. She was dizzy for a moment. "I'm so tired," she said. "I feel bad." "Here," said Bethany, tossing her a pair of underpants. "I don't know how in the world you can lay around all day wearing just a t-shirt. That would drive me nuts." And Janie looked down and smiled. She slipped the underpants on and looked around for her cigarettes. They were on the bedspread. "That's why you feel so bad, babe," said Bethany, opening up the first of the boxes. "You lay around naked and you smoke those menthol vapor rub cigarettes. The new warnings on menthol are terrifying. You could die all of a sudden and not even know it." "What's all that?" asked Janie, lighting the cigarette and waving the smoke away impatiently. "It's Rachel," said Bethany, taking the long dress out of the box. "She is one classy babe. Look at this frock." Janie smirked and walked over to her walk-in closet to select something to wear tonight. She sorted through half a dozen things and then sighed in exasperation. She didn't even feel like showering, letting alone seeing a dinner theater deal at Jacques. She looked back at the costume clothes for the part of Rachel Blackwelder. Bethany was taking makeup trays out of the box and unwrapping the styro head of a wig stand. The wig was gorgeous. Janie couldn't help but stare at it. An auburn-colored thing, dark auburn. The hair seemed to be real, and it shimmered in the bedroom light like silk. "Man," whistled Bethany. "This feels great, babe." She laid the thing carefully back down and went back to undoing the makeup. There were about 50 tubes of skin darkener that Janey, being the fair-skinned woman that she was, would have to affect in order to become Rachel. Oh well, instant tan. Janey had used it before, and it did look good on her. Some of the actresses turned orange wearing it, but not Janey. That stuff looked better on her than an actual tan. Bethany was watching her out of the corner of her eye. Janey was trying to decide if she should model Rachel's fringed western deerskin frock tonight, or not. There was nothing in her closet that she wanted to wear, even though her closet was chock full of the new togs, dresses, and designer clothing from New York. But no, Janey was staring at the frontier dress, and Bethany knew that nothing else would do her but to wear it. "Here," said Bethany, picking up the dress. "The red eelskin boots are in the lower box. Shower yourself, and I'll see you downstairs in 5. No later, or I come and get you." She shoved the hangered dress toward Janey, who accepted it. Bethany went out the doorway, turning around once more as she went outside. 5 minutes, babe. Move your butt, she said, winking at her. Bethany closed the door behind her. Janey walked over and picked up the wig. A charge, rather like static electricity, went through her. Janey's mouth fell open. My God, this is real hair. She played her fingers through it like water and sniffed it. It smelled clean. This wig was brand new. The last person to wear this hair had been the original owner. Rubbing her fingers together, she put the wig down and went into the shower. She washed quickly, making sure to hit the high spots, and then she toweled off. She walked stark naked back into her bedroom and combed out her wet hair. She blew her hair roughly dry enough not to drip, and then she threw the tangled mass of blonde back over her shoulders, where it would naturally dry into a pretty mass of teased, permed David Coverdale / Robert Plant coils. She liked that hairstyle a lot. It was easy and quick. Also, she liked to feel it down her back when she was naked, like now. She coiled her blow-dryer cord and shoved it back on the table. She put on her clean underpants and slipped a couple of dress shields down into her armpits. She didn't want to stain this dress. It was beautiful. All actresses and actors got to keep the clothing they wore in movies, and Rachel was going to outfit Janey nicely. Oh, yes. She sprayed on her musk deodorant and walked over to get the boots out of the box. The tannic acid smell of the real red leather greeted her, and she placed the opening of one boot over her nose and mouth and breathed deeply, taking in the leather scent gratefully. She closed her eyes. That smells good. She looked guiltily over at the door and started dressing faster. She'd best not incur the wrath of Bethany if she could help it. She was in no mood to spar with Bethany Pam Bishop today. No way. She considered for a moment dressing up entirely like Rachel for the evening. That would be wild, wouldn't it? To go as Rachel. She thought about it. But due to tradition, she knew she wouldn't. For one thing, it would take forever to doll up like Rachel, and for another thing, that old drama coach would haunt her from the grave for breaking stage tradition. One never wears one's costume out into the street before opening night. Bad luck and all that rot. Oh well. She slipped on the dress. It felt good right away. Those extra long fringes swirled around regally every time Janey moved, giving her a smooth, oiled motion that would surely turn a few heads. The boots fit perfectly, and the smell was turning her on. New leather. When was the last time she'd made a leather purchase? Ooh, they felt nice on her feet. She squirmed her toes purposely, sensually, against the smooth insides of the boots. "Don't scuff these lovelies up tonight now, Janey," she admonished herself, and swirled around some more in the mirror. She felt about 5 inches taller in Rachel's clothing. That felt good. She finished dressing and looked at herself as she grabbed up her purse, her leather one for the occasion. It had about $50 in it and some credit cards. That would be enough for tonight. She wouldn't need her driver's license since she wasn't going to be driving. She could see Rachel's features beginning to form in the mirror. This was her only anxiety, this becoming another woman, even a fictitious character like Rachel Blackwelder. That bothered her a little bit. Janey would actually become Rachel, she knew, when she played the part. No one knew this but her. Bethany went along with Janey's descriptions as they went, whenever she would tell her things like that. But Janey knew Bethany was humoring her. Bethany thought that Janey's becoming a character was a lot of artsy-fartsy nonsense, some richness or other that actresses groove on. "Oh, darling, how terribly, terribly rich of you to become the person you're playing." But it was true. Janey would become Rachel and then have to become herself again later, after it was all over. What Janey feared was not being able to come back again to being herself. One of these times, she might get stuck. Janey smiled at herself and then went downstairs. Bethany whistled loudly at her friend when she saw her descending the long, spiraling, grand staircase. For a moment, Janey forgot her fear and didn't recall it for the rest of the night. Chapter 2. Wanted, college student. Leanne was sitting at her breakfast table, downing her coffee in her bowl of Almond Delight cereal, noisily slupping the milk from an overlarge spoon she was used to eating the clumped cereal with. She didn't feel like washing a sane-sized spoon. She was sort of in a hurry, and she wanted to read, eat her cereal, and go. She was reading the classified ads, and had just seen this one. Excellent chance to study on the job. Work as an alarm room attendant. Pay is fantastic, and readers are encouraged to apply. Contact Mr. Denversine at 213-434-3456 for interview. Must have a clean record and pass NCIC FCIC criminal computer check. Call between 9 and 5 weekdays. Well, here seemed to be an answer to prayer. Leanne looked around at her little dingy dormitory apartment and sighed. For a few more bucks, she could add the difference her folks were sending her and get an apartment over on High Street, one of those modern studio affairs with a small balcony and sunny little kitchenette. Oh, Lord, wouldn't that be nice? Yes, she could have one of those with a real set of sliding glass doors and a real water massage on the shower head with enough by-God pressure to thrill her no end. She loved being whipped around by the heads on those Teledyne Waterpik shower massagers, and when she would use the bathroom while window shopping for apartments over on High Street, she would always peek behind the nice mold-free curtain at the freshly grouted tile, and she would always look up at one of those beauties. Its masculine head would nod slowly down at her, carefully eyeing her. "Hi there." She would always feel a quiver when she would see him up there. "Hi yourself," she thought. She would do it. If she could read on the job, then she could do the job. That was simple as that. She would do it. Reading was all she had this semester anyway. She had finished all the technical stuff early on, all the lab requirements and research and term papers. Being a woman like Leanne, she had all of her weekends to wrap up the technical stuff, and now her degree was certain. All she had to do was read a few boring Western Civ courses and a few themes in literature, stories, bull crap like that, and she would graduate. That was it. The remainder of her college education would be composed of reading. Yeah, she could sit in a bug room and listen for alarms to go off. Pie job. She had applied for this type of job back home once, working with the local police. The police officer who interviewed her said that all she would have to do is sit there and listen, and then respond by pushing the red button when it would light up. That would alert dispatch in the other building, and they could send a unit to respond to the Audible 81, as he called it. The bug operator could then return to her paperback or whatever she had brought with her to do that night. Pie job. She hadn't gotten that job because the woman who was being fired didn't get the axe after all. Something to do with the chief's son or something. Whatever. It meant that Leanne wouldn't get to work the bug room at the PD, and that had been during her high school days. Now, years later, she thought she'd try again. What the heck? What did she have to lose by applying for the job? The afternoon? Some loss. She ate her breakfast and then washed out her dishes in the sink, careful to unplug the pot of coffee before she left. She would go by the bank, then go to her English 112 lit class, and then go over to this, what did they call it? Star Alarms, yeah. That was a weird name, wasn't it? Well, she would go. She copied the address and remembered to put it in her purse to give to the cabbie. Then she wiped her mouth on the dish towel and made a mental note to wash some things this weekend. If she didn't, she faced being overrun with dirty clothes. That would never do, she smiled. Mom might call, and Mother could sense dirty things over the phone lines. Moms could do that. She went to the phone, called the number, and made an appointment for 3 that afternoon. Then she hung up and walked over to get her keys off the counter, where she kept them. She walked out the door, her book bag full of these heavy books. The house was silent after she left, and in the bathroom her brush tumbled off the sink where she had precariously placed it that morning. It clattered against the old linoleum floor and bounced into the foot of the old freestanding tub. But because Leanne was not there to hear it, it made no sound at all. Janey sat reading her character's study of Rachel Blackwelder. She had her cigarette swirling slowly and her hot tea beside her, studying the pamphlet carefully as though it contained everything she needed to be Rachel. The novel still lay as before, unread and gathering dust, but the character's study was well bent and somewhat frayed around the edges. Opening scene. Camera pan of Peaceful Valley, Pennsylvania. Rows of headstones are visible as the camera shoots the scenery in the far distance. There appears to be some sort of road, and beyond that, a hillside covered in trees. Nestled within these trees is a large, contemporary house, complete with redwood siding and geometric-shaped sloping rooftops. There is a round tower on the far end of the house and a second-story window. This reflects distant clouds from the west. Opening song, No Sugar Tonight by the Guess Who. Scene change. Somewhere out on 95, Black Mustang rolls into the scene and is northbound up a virtually deserted highway. Scene of car's interior. Rachel wearing one of her period dresses. The inference is Rachel heading home, obviously. I wonder about that, mused Janey to herself as she took another drag off her cigarette. From what Janey was able to glean from these roughed-out notes, the song was to play as Rachel was heading home from work one afternoon. Towards the end of the song, the scene will change back to Peaceful Valley with a close-up of the great gates in front of Rachel's 2-story house. There is a wrought iron sign within the gate's ironwork that reads, "The Abbey." This is Rachel's pet name for her house, apparently. The gates open at the end of this song and a car enters. Now the camera is showing the driver's view, so the identity of the car and the driver cannot be determined. We're still assuming it to be Rachel. As the song ends, however, a stylish black boot, bedecked with silver chains, clacks against the pavement from inside the car, and a small man steps out. It is Frangi, and now the car is revealed not to be a black Mustang, but a red Fiero. He walks up the pavement to the side porch. Janey closed her eyes and felt the burning sensation as it passed. She was getting tired of reading now and wanted to go to bed. She was trying to get herself a handle on how this movie was going to get shot, but these notes were difficult to fathom. Janey fumbled to the back of the scene plotting and started reading how the flick would end. Bethany walked into the room and stared at her in mock horror. "You are reading that book backwards, Janey," she shrieked. "That's going to ruin the plot." "It is not a book, moron," answered Janey, "and there is no plot. Not in a character study. Did your mother have any kids that lived?" "Just me," smiled Bethany. "I was enough for her." Janey tossed her little pamphlet aside and looked down at her friend. She smiled at Bethany and touched her cheek, gently, almost an apology for what she'd said. For a moment Bethany accepted it. "Now you're trying to butter me up, huh?" asked Bethany. "Well, sorry, babe, not tonight. I have a headache." Janey shoved her playfully, and Bethany fell over with the giggles. "You finished with the packing?" asked Janey. She appreciated Bethany more than the woman would ever know. Bethany nodded. She was exhausted. "You can have the spare room tonight if you want, Beth. I see you are in no shape to take on Mulholland Drive tonight." "Thanks, Jay," said Bethany, her head down on the bed. She was exhausted. "I think I'm going to give it up myself," said Janey, switching out her light by the bed. "I feel like I'm made of lead weights." "Iron poor blood," mumbled Bethany. "That's what it is." "It feels like AIDS," said Janey, sniffing her cigarette as she put it out. "I'm shot out, babe." Bethany rolled over and stared up at Janey, smiling. She watched Janey as she scrunched down in the bed, a silver stream of moonlight falling across the women as they lay there. It was common knowledge to both women that Bethany Pam Bishop was a reformed lesbian. She had been to defag clinic, and she was straight again. It said as much on her certificate, a tongue-in-cheek card they gave to those who successfully went through the course without backsliding. It sounded a little too much like one of those fundamentalist church things where the penitent undergoes doctrine and is a member in good standing upon completion of the course. Bethany swore by it, though. She had been hanging out with homosexuals for years, and had freely had sex with the switch-hitters who wanted to be AC/DC. Bethany did fear the AIDS virus for that reason. Those were the culprits of that affliction, not the straight homosexuals, the bye-bye ones, the ones who couldn't decide. They were the ones who passed AIDS around like a football. Upon learning of AIDS, Bethany had sought to go straight and leave everyone in that racket alone. Janey couldn't see a reason for that because women didn't pass it to women as a rule. But Bethany said she was going to go through DFAG. She signed up for the big 6-month class and had religiously attended. Upon graduation, she still hated the thoughts of giving up women, but she had a plan. She decided she would be celibate. That would cure everything. She would be just like Janie Knight, celibate. Janie couldn't understand it, but she went along with it. If it made Bethany happy, it made Janie happy. Whatever. However, Bethany had been playing this whole charade of being celibate for a year now, and according to Bethany, it was working out just fine. Janie knew Bethany wasn't going to ever try anything with her, but she still liked to tease her about it. "You haven't backslid, have you?" asked Janie. "No, ma'am," whispered Bethany, like a naughty daughter might do. "You aren't worried about me, are you? If I was, you'd be driving back to your own place. You do know that." "Yeah," said Bethany. "But I haven't backslid. I wouldn't do that, I don't think, now." "It's okay, Beth," said Janie. "Go on to bed." "No, really, I think I was in love with you once, Janie. Once when I did things like I was doing with women. I purposely started managing you because I did want to seduce you, but we've been through this 1,000 times. I told you this long before the deprogramming courses. We always have had an open relationship, you and I, and..." "Yes, you told me," said Janie. "You told me that you weren't going to do anything about your urges." "Don't make me sorry I told you about me," said Bethany. "Please." "Go to bed, Beth," said Janie. "I'm okay with you. See you tomorrow." "Okay," said Bethany. "Bethany," asked Janie, as her friend poked her head around the corner of the doorway, "leave my door open, okay?" Bethany smiled and pushed the door all the way open. Janie got comfortable and began to think about Bethany. It wasn't Bethany she was worried about. It was herself. Bethany might be grooving on this celibacy crap, but it wasn't for Janie. Janie liked the comfort of hugs and kisses. She liked a warm body to sleep with at night. She enjoyed non-sexual touches as well as the other kind. They made life so much less cold. That was why women wanted children, she had to concede, to have everyday huggable people in their empty lives. But Janie had no children. Worse, she had a friend as close as Bethany who could provide her with a lot of that non-sexual affection. But no, Bethany would have to be a former dyke, wouldn't she? Yeah, any heterosexual woman would run up and kiss her on the mouth and hug the crap out of her and not so much as bat an eye. But not these stupid dykes. All they wanted to do was get serious and fight all the time. Screw that. All that senseless laying and rubbing and fondling. They might as well have a man. He could do that much. Not that Janie Knight was the patron saint of the uninitiated. By no means. Janie had had an accident once in college with a friend of hers who went a little too far with her. No more of that, thank you very large. Janie had spent a year getting over that little accident. Janie tried to go to sleep, hugging her pillow and sensually rubbing her fingers along the silken covering like a lover. It felt nice to do that, and she squirmed deep into her sheets, enjoying the pleasure that squirming brought her. She was asleep in no time. As she slept, she dreamed. About 1 a.m, she seemed to wake up. Maybe she didn't, and maybe she did. She would never be sure. Was she awake, thinking it was a dream, or was she dreaming that she was awake? She could never tell the difference. Janie was into dreamland before she knew it. "Janie," asked a voice, a pretty deep voice, honeyed over with soft and deep tones. Asked Janie from her groggy state. "Janie, don't worry about me. You'll get me just fine, girl." Janie thought it was Bethany back for an instant, but as the figure drew nearer, Janie saw it wasn't her at all. "You'll be able to do me, I know you will. Just let it happen." It was Rachel Blackwelder. Janey started for an instant. Rachel, here in her bedroom. But she seemed to be smiling at her, and she meant her no harm, apparently. I know, lady, Rachel was telling her. God, loneliness? I know a lot about it. Until little one came into my life, I was suicidal. I was bad off. Little one. Janey knew that was Charlotte in the story. Bethany had been telling her what all she had missed by not reading the novel. She had been giving her a blow-by-blow account. You are not abnormal for wanting a daughter, Janey. It's okay to want that. It's really all right. Rachel sat down on the bed beside her. Do you know about the soul dance, Janey? Asked Rachel seriously. Bethany, mumbled Janey in her sleep. She told me something about it. Well, I want to help you, Janey. Will you let me do that? Janey nodded, feeling heavy and weak. Terrific, said Rachel. Now lay on your back for me. Somehow Janey was on her back, staring up at the ceiling. She did not see Rachel, but she knew she was there. I want to help you become me, Janey, Rachel was saying. For this part, I want to tell you all about me so you can become me. I know you'll be terrific as me in this movie. Will you let me help you? Sure, said Janey. Very tired. Good, said Rachel. Now just relax and know what I know. Good, warm thoughts of Charlotte began pouring into Janey's head, like she herself knew about Charlotte, and like she was going to be Charlotte's surrogate mother. As Rachel, she would be her. Be what I am, Rachel was saying, more distantly than before. Janey smiled and let it happen. Yes, it could. Wanting a daughter wasn't a biological urge. After all, it was a mental need. This dream of Rachel was giving her that. She was fulfilling Janey's mental needs. Oh, yes, whispered Janey thickly. Now, whispered Rachel, and she was gone. Gone like a quick little breeze blowing through the window. Janey woke up. The windows were down, the climatrol was on, and so were the security alarms. Bethany was asleep in the other room, and there was no one in the room with Janey. The apparition of Rachel had been a dream. Thank you, whispered Janey, and she rolled over, feeling warm inside. The characterization was complete now. Janey had become Rachel Blackwelder. For deep within her own head, Janey heard plain as day, You're welcome. Chapter 3. Miss Ashley, asked the balding man from behind the desk, as Leanne was shown into his office. The over-smiling receptionist smiled wryly at her as she closed the door, leaving Leanne with a man whose desk proclaimed Jefferson Rosen in great gold lettering. She stared at the man and its promised product just behind it. Jefferson Rosen. He looked friendly enough, but he was ominous. His office was long and commanded respect. His desk, far too large for the amount of writing work he would ever do in so exalted a position. That was what made Leanne wonder. They gave poor college students enough room to elbow each other, and they were the ones who had need of a desk like this one, to spread out all their lab stuff on. Men like Jefferson Rosen had the space, but no work to occupy it. A lone set of those neat magnetic toys were spinning absently on the highly polished top, safely in their axis framework, spinning balls and little space shuttle figures. All that desk space for a few old toys. Yes, she managed, hearing how small her voice sounded in the heavy silence of the room. The man got up and came around to her. This seemed to put her at ease. "I'm Jeff Rosen, Miss Ashley," he told her, and reached out to take her hand. She gave it to him, and the ice seemed to melt away. "Pleased to meet you, sir," she said demurely. "May we speak more familiarly then, Miss Ashley?" he asked, cocking his head. "Certainly," she said. "I'm Leanne." "And I'm Jeff," he repeated. "Nice to meet you." "My pleasure," she responded, to fill in the silence that would have been left had she said nothing. She liked him right away. He didn't try to call her Lee, nor Anne, but he called her Leanne. That was her name, and anything short of that was not her name. He had done well in calling her Leanne. She warmed up at once. "Congratulations," he said softly. "You have the job." She felt her mouth open and her eyes bulge. He enjoyed seeing this reaction from her, and later Leanne would think about that. He must get his jollies that way. But then, he had hired her. Therefore, it was okay. "Thank you, sir," she managed. He patted her shoulder professionally. "You might ask yourself how I came to hire you so quickly then. Well, I am at liberty, so I will tell you. We spoke with the admissions office, and they said you were perfect. Your college thinks very highly of you, Leanne Ashley. Very highly indeed. A Professor Jenkins recommended you." "I am pleased they have trust in me," she stammered, blushing. "They said that a more studious, more conscientious young lady we could not get. Your studies are your life, they told us. We need someone like you, so I feel free to waive the drug testing and the polygraph. You don't seem to need the physical either, do you?" "No, sir," she said. "I'm fine." That bit about her studies being her life they could have left off, because she felt bad enough about her lack of a social life. Still, that same part did get her the job without all the testing and poking and prodding. Leanne had never used drugs and had never lied to an employer. She had never stolen anything, and she was very trustworthy. And she did look good in person. Or is it because I have gotten virgin written all over me, she wondered. I could not possibly get in trouble because I have no sexual experience. That might be part of it. Still, bad as she hated the sound of that, she was employed. "Now let me show you the fruits of being so chaste and well-behaved," he said, turning to a curtained portion of the wall. He drew the curtain back by a small green button to reveal a clear plexiglass screen. Behind this wall of screen, the room was empty. "This is a mock-up of the actual bug room," he said. "We train you in here, and then you go to work." Trained? To push one button for an alarm? Her reading got farther away from the purpose of this job as he was speaking. She might actually have to do something here. "We must show you how to use the cameras, Leanne. I have a hunch you have no idea what you're going to be doing for us." "No, sir," she said. "I have no idea." "Good," he smiled. "We don't like to advertise it, but we do work with video equipment. You'll be seeing inside our contracted properties. You will have the omnipotent viewpoint from here, seeing all down inside the rooms we secure. Anything moves and you'll be able to see it." Terrific, she thought. Staring at warehouses all night. What a drag. She felt herself becoming bored already. "The pay is excellent, you know," he said, watching her crest fall. "You will commence at 7 an hour." "7 what an hour?" she almost asked him, as her mouth fell open. $7 an hour? $7 an hour? "I'm stunned," she mumbled. "Yes, well, we do think it's worth it," he said. She agreed. For $7 an hour, she would look into unflushed toilet bowls. "We can pay it as well," he said. "Looking after the homes of the stars isn't an easy job, for you see that is what you're going to be doing with us." Stars? Asked Leanne, unable to believe her ears. Movie stars? Like Janie Knight? Sly Stallone, Red Fox, the late Sammy Davis Jr., the late Rex Harrison, Alicia Silverstone, Val Kilmer, Gina Davis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Donna D'Errico, Pam Anderson, to name a few. We also got the Janie Knight contract as of last week. He gauged her reaction carefully and saw elation in her eyes. They fairly danced with delight. He thought she was a very pretty young woman. Really? She squealed like a schoolgirl. Oh, yes, he said. Janie's away filming, you know.